So today's topic, we're going to be covering print statements. We're going to be covering variables. We're going to be covering expressions. So before we get into the lecture, I do want to go over Zybook. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. So this is where we left off. So hello world. That the print is essentially a function in Python. So whatever you pass to it, whatever string you pass to it, it'll print it to the screen. So just like this right here, it's printing hello world. It's not printing the quotations, it's not printing anything else, it's printing whatever is inside of quotation. As we move on, you'll learn there are different types, data types in almost all the languages. The main things you'll need to understand, the three main ones. They're going to be string. This is what we're using right now. Everything in quotation is a string and is basically a text. So like I said, it's a print is a function, and this string goes as a parameter inside of that function, and whatever you pass to it, it'll print it. So that it doesn't have to be hello world. You can just pass in a number and it'll print that number. So right now I'm passing in a 2. So when I pass in a 2, this is an integer. Remember, it's a whole number, it's an integer. It goes in and it converts that to a string and prints that to the screen. So it's not actually printing an integer to the screen, it's printing a string. So doing this or doing this, there's not much of a difference. They're both strings, but you won't be able to do math on this. So let's say you can do 2 plus, let's keep it simple, 2 plus 2. What would print to the screen if I run this? So it's going to do the math first and then pass the 4 to the function print and print 4 as a string. So it's not going to convert this to a string and then pass it. It's going to do the math first, and then whatever the result is, that would get passed to the function as a string. And what do you think would happen if I do something like this? So I have a string, and then I have a plus sign, then I have an integer. 22. So if you're coming from Java, 22 is correct. That's what would happen. But in Python, it's not. Yeah, you'll get an error. This won't work. The reason it won't work is you're not able to do concatenation. So in Java, what you can do is you can just add a plus sign, and whatever comes after that string will be converted into a string. But in Python, that's not the case. If you run it, you'll get an error, and the error is concatenation, concatenate string. You can concatenate string, but not int. But in Java, it just converts integer to a string, and you're able to concatenate it, but not in Python. So if you're able to do something like, if you want to do something like this, you won't be able to. The shortcut for that is convert that to a string like this. This is casting, and you're going to cast that to a string, and then you're able to do that. Now, if I run it, what do you think will happen? If I run it this time, I do get 22. So concatenation will, this is not much you can do in Python with that. It's mainly for Java. So I'm not really getting into concatenation here, but you'll learn more about concatenation in Java. It's the first link, and you'll be downloading the community version. So so difference, we have string, and then we have integer, which is integer, and which is just a number. And run the code. The first time you're trying to run the code, your file may not appear here, so you have to right click on it and run it this way. So you have to right click on the tab of the file and run test. Right now I'm going to get an error because I have these two, but this is how you run the code the first time. Right click and run, and then you run it one time, then the file will appear here, and then you can just keep clicking the play button. So to add to concatenate, you need to make sure combine it with the string. Concatenation is basically you're combining two things together. So let's say this would be concatenation as well. So you're concatenating two strings together. So this is a string. Remember, this is a open quotation, end quotation, and this is first string, which is this is open quotation, end quotation. This is the first string, and this is the second string, and you're concatenating using the plus symbol. So if you run it now, they'll be right next to each other. There's no space, nothing here. Even if you have a space here, like this, if you run it, there won't be any space because it's only printing everything inside of quotation. In print statement, you don't actually, in Python, you don't actually have to concatenate all the time. You can pass in as separate strings by separating by a comma. If I run it right now, it'll run it. The only thing it added a space because it's treating it as two different variables. It's still treating it as two different arguments. And when you pass it to the string, to the print function, those will be printed separately. So first string, second string, and we're adding a comma in between, and we can add as many strings we want. This is a third. Yeah, so it would be an error. I don't have quotations. I'm just typing in the third string. So it's giving me a red squiggly line underneath. That means there's going to be an error if I run it. So there it shows me that's the error, line 1. And if I click on that red line and click on this, it should sometimes actually tells you what the error is. This time it's not. It just says invalid syntax if you look at the bottom. But the syntax is you have to pass in a string. So remember, strings always go in quotations. That's how it becomes string. If you're trying to type something in, it has to be declared up above. That would be like a variable, anything like that. We'll get into variables in a minute and how we can use that. But now what would print? And the arrow, up arrow, and I don't think that means anything here. Did you see it anywhere? I might have missed it. Oh, this right here. Oh, this is just telling me that right here. I'm guessing that's what you're saying, Leroy. So this means that that's where the error is, and you need to go fix it. That's the end of the error. So the error started here, it's ending here. Right. So yeah, so as many arguments as you want, you can pass in and it'll print it. And the other way you can do it, or instead of doing this, the other way you could do it would be have multiple print statements. So this would be second string. And if you want, you can have third. So you see the difference. If you have one line and we're passing in separated by a comma, it prints it on the same line. But if you have print statements, it prints it on their each line. That if you're coming from Java, how many of you are actually coming from Java or not coming from Java, but know a little bit about Java? So the reason, there's a couple of you, a few of you. All right. So the thing you can compare it with Java would be print is like a print ln. Ln is like a new line, and print if you want it on the same line, you actually have to separate it by a comma. So there is no print ln, there is no print statement. There's no separation. There's just one print, and then the way you want to organize it, it's up to you. So so Python tries to make it simple and give users what they want to do, and they can modify it the way they want it. They don't have a lot of functions. You can have multiple spaces, and then you can pass in a second string. So that, but these spaces are not printed. Remember, these spaces are only for compiler. Everything inside of quotation is printed. So now let's get rid of this. What happens if you have two print statements, but you want to, I'm going to get rid of the blank space right here. The reason you don't want to have a lot of blank space is you make sure your code looks good when you're actually going through it. You don't want to have something like this, and then you have something like this, and you're sending me the code. It's like, okay, here you go, it works. It's gonna work, but it looks really, really bad. So if you go into industry and you do something like this, they're probably just gonna laugh at you, like, what are you doing? Make sure it looks readable. You're able to read it. When you look at it, it looks good, because that's what matters. Because if you have code all over the place, even though it works, it's not a good thing in the industry. So Brian, the interpreter, you'll actually have to install that. So if you go to File Settings and search for interpreter, and you'll be able to add an interpreter there. So now you have first string, second string, third string. What if you want to print the third string right next to the second string? So if I run it now, it'll be on the second line. What if I want it here? And I don't want to get rid of this print statement. What you can do is you can add an end clause. How do you want this line to end? Right now it's ending with a new line. So it ends with a new line, the cursor prints this, the cursor moves to the next line and prints this. So it prints this, it ends, move the cursor to the next line, and then print the next line. If I add this, it's going to end this line with a space. It's not going to move the cursor to the next line. If I run it, it'll all be on the one on the gray ones. You really don't actually have to worry about it. They're only telling you that your code may look bad, but the red ones are the ones you actually have to worry about. So if you get a red squiggly line, then that's the one you have to worry about. All right. So the end, this right here, this means, so you have this right here. What the compiler is going to do is going to print this, and it's going to do FIRST space all this, and then string STRING, and sees there's nothing else to print after this. It's going to move the cursor to the next line and let the compiler print whatever comes next or do whatever it needs to do afterwards. So it's going to move the cursor here, and it's going to move to the next line and print the third string right here. But if you tell the compiler at the end, don't move the cursor, just print a space and move the cursor on the same line. By doing this, we can tell the compiler to do that. So run it, the cursor here won't move to the next line, it'll just print space and stay on the same line, and it'll wait for the instructions from the second line. So make sure you guys have your chat open, because I'm getting questions on the chat, a lot of questions on the chat. So maybe I'm answering something and you may be going, what is he talking about? I'm just answering questions from the chat. So you make sure you have that open and you're able to read the question as well. The other thing, there are multiple ways to do things. So that I'm showing you almost, I won't be able to show you all the ways, but I'll be able to show you all the basic ways to do something. So you may never use this. You may find a different way to do it, but I'm just trying to show you different ways to do it, so you know. The other thing you can do is you can do a separation clause. So you can do a separate, and you can separate it by a dash. So all the parameters that you pass in here, so let's say you have a third string, all these are going to be separated by not a space. They're going to be separated by dashes. If I run it now, there's the first string, then there are 2 dashes, then second string, then 2 dashes. And it makes it simple. Let's say you want to separate all these by a comma, but you don't want to actually go in there and print a comma by every one. You can just add it at the end and it'll print it that way. It'll add comma space to every single one of them. It won't add it to the last one. It is smart enough to know that that's where it's ending. There's nothing afterward, but it'll add it in the middle. So sometimes students get confused. Well, why you have this here and you also have it here? So why do we need this here? So this is actually not printed. This is for us to separate it while we're writing the code. Only everything inside of quotation is printed. So it's separating by a comma, but this is not printed. So even if I add like a bunch of space, so this is helpful if you have a bunch of numbers, separating by a comma, you can by doing this, or if you want to add dashes, you can do that here, or you can add anything you want at the end, separating clause. So that's helpful there. So all these things will make more clear once you know a little bit more about Python, that why there are like 10 ways to do one thing. Why are we still stuck on the print statement? Because there's so many different ways of doing something. That's why we're doing it. So before we get into more print statements, one thing I do want to go over is comments. So how many of you know what comments are? Or does anybody know what comments are in coding? All right. So if you're coming from Java, you should know what comments are. Comments is, let's say you have this line of code and you have this line of code uh, like this. But you only want to run this one, not the second one, but you don't want to delete it. What you can do is you can comment out the code. So the way you comment out in Python, you just use a hash. So there are a lot of different usage for it. We'll go over that in a minute. But main one, if you want to comment out a line, and then you can just use the hashtag. Yeah, it is way better than Java because it's just one symbol. So hashtag, it'll just comment it out. It just won't print it. Let's say you want to print this one and not this one. You put a hashtag there. And it'll just print the second one, not the first one. Hashtag means you're just commenting that out. And when the compiler looks at the code, what it's going to do is like, oh, well, that's just simple text for the user. I'm not going to run it. It skips that line. Like I said, if you have Windows, you can go to File, Settings, and search here for interpreter. Like this. This screen will come up, but yours will be blank here. But right next to it, you'll have a blue button to add. That's for Rahil. He's asking a question. He's not able to run anything. You'll be able to add an interpreter right here and local interpreter. And it'll install it. Just click OK, 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 I think 3 times, and it'll install it. You don't actually have to select anything. You just add a local interpreter. I'm sorry, for about comment. All right, so now we have one line comment. So there's 2 different types of comments. We have line comment and we have multi-line comment. Well, I'll show you in a minute. So line comment is a hashtag. You'll see that doing this in the code, but a lot of people do this in Python. All this is a comment. Only the first hashtag counts as like a symbol to tell the interpreter, the compiler, that this is a comment. Everything else is just text after that. So some people do this. You don't actually have to do this. You can just have one hashtag, and everything else turns into a text after that. So we can over that. And the next one is a multi-line comment. So that is 3 single quotes. As soon as we type in 3 single quotes, the next 3 types in automatically. You just hit enter, and anything you type in here will be ignored by the compiler. And now, if I run it, the code will run exactly the same, only these 2 lines will run. This is a multi-line comment. Else, and run it, you're printing 4 lines of code. Now, let's say you don't want to print these 2 lines. You don't want to print 5 and 7. So what you can do is add multi-line comment like this, and it's going to take the code inside of it out. If you run it, it's going to run the first one and the last one. So those 2 are the main reason you want to use comments. The other one is the most important one you want to use, multi-line comment, is every time you're going to be doing an assignment, you have to have this up on top. So you're going to be using this multi-line comment to write your name. Then you're going to be writing, if you're working with a partner, it's a partner assignment, you're going to be writing your partner's name. Like today, you're going to be working on an assignment, you're going to be writing partner's name, and you're going to be writing CS 108, and then you're going to be writing 1 line describing what this code does. So whatever the code that you write, you're going to be at least 1 line. You're not limited to 1 line. So 1 line in English, what your code does. So it's going to be this code prints 1, 2, 3. As you move forward in computer science, you'll see the importance of coding. I have to code my, I have to comment my code all the time because the companies, they don't want to rely on one employee. So they're constantly changing employees. They're not firing them or anything like that. Or maybe they're firing them and getting new ones. But let's say 5 years from now, they need to upgrade that code. The 5 years from now, you're not there. I'm not there to fix my code. They're going to get someone else to do it. And the comments are not there to explain what I'm doing in the code. It gets really, really hard to read through like 1,000 lines of code and see what they were trying to do. And when I say 1,000 lines of code, that's the small project. I've written 10,000 lines of codes to do in a project. So going through that, it gets hectic. So you have to have a line comment, you have to have a multi-line comment to explain each function, each variable. You have to explain everything in your code. And this is just a start to writing one line of code to explain what you're trying to do. So you'll get a head start of when you get to the industry. This code prints 1, 2, 3. As simple as that. So you examples of people code. I'm not sure what that means. Example. Do you mean I look at other people's code? That I got a question here. I Can you rephrase it a little bit? Yeah, I look at other people's code all the time. I've had there was a time that somebody got fired, and I had to take over their work. And I'm asking you, do you have examples of professional code that we can see? I won't be able to share my code because it's a privacy issue, and Boeing and everybody else is they're really strict on that. I could get fired if I share my code from work, but yeah, I can show you some of the code, obviously. Yeah, probably not today. Not gonna have enough time, but yeah, and I'll show you. I made that's actually a bad example, but you'll learn from that. I'll show you my code. I made a Android app back in the long time ago. That the first time I learned it. I think it was like first year on my job. I did my separate project at home. I learned Android programming and I developed an app. And I think one page of coding was about 10,000 lines, I think, or maybe 5,000. I'm forgetting. I'll show you that. And it was so bad. It was so bad. Now look at it. I'm just embarrassed of it. But I'll show you that. You'll get an idea of what. Because if somebody else goes in, try to figure out what's going on. Even if I go in right now and try to figure out what's going on, I won't be able to. Because I didn't leave any comments in there. I was fresh out of college, and I wasn't following any guidelines. I was just trying to get it done. I was trying to get it done, and I was trying to figure out how to do Android. I was just still learning at that time, and I kept writing, and then there was a bug in there, and it would take me like a full day to figure out where the bug is because it wasn't organized. The code wasn't organized. It wasn't commented, and now it's just sitting somewhere. I was sitting, but yeah. So comment your code as much as you can. Remember, you need this for almost every assignment, group assignment, in-class assignment, anything you do. Make sure you have that up at top. Your name, your partner's name obviously is optional if you're working with a partner, which class, and oh, I'm sorry, the third thing, assignment name. So then today you're gonna have in-class assignment Thursday. So if you have in-class assignment, just write in-class assignment and which day, or you can always put a date next to it as well. And yeah, that would be it. Make sure you have that every time. The next thing I wanted to go over was escape sequences in string. Escape sequences, does anybody know what these are? So Brian, I got a question from Brian. Please elaborate your question. When copy the code, it shows error sign. Which code are you trying to copy and which I'll go to and answer your question afterwards, and during break or something like that. I do want to cover this. Is it regarding print statements or comments, Brian? No. So are you able to run the code at all, or is just giving you an error? So I want to cover escape sequences. So there are multiple escape sequences. So we have, this means tab, then we have new line, and then we have, if you want to print this, The backspace, this is how you would do it. And then you have, you want to print quotation. Remember, quotation is like a key symbol in programming language. But if you want to print that as it is, you need backslash for that. And then you have U or N, and that's for emojis. Yeah, the backslash, yeah, that's what we're gonna do right now. What are they used for? Let's say you have string. So you have print, and then you have heading, and then you have, let's say, what is it? A paragraph. Like this. And let's say you have a bunch of other stuff, bunch of other stuff after that. But you want these two to separate and be on the second line. So you have heading, we'll make this and paragraph, bunch of other stuff. What you can do is you can add a tab right here. So if we print it right now, there's a tab right here. There's 3 spaces. There should be 3 spaces there for tab. And you can define that in the settings, how big of spaces do you want for the tab. And you can always have new line and a tab. So if you run it now, you have a heading, then the paragraph starts. And you can do all that in one line. So this backslash is reserved as a special character in programming. And every time you add that, it's going to be looking for a keyword or key letter afterwards, what to do. So N means new line, T means tab, it's going to do a tab. And if you actually want to print that special character, you need 2 of them. So as soon as you type that in, so let's say you want to print everything in one line and you want to format everything inside that one line. That's why you would need to add that in there. I'm keep getting a message that my connection I might be losing my connection. So if I do lose my connection, I'll just start this meeting again. Or if you're not able to hear me, because I'm constantly talking here. If you're not able to hear me, let me know so I can wait and repeat myself. All right. So that's one reason you would want to do it. Later in the course, you'll be writing to a text file, and writing to a text file, you'll be writing like just one line of code, and you want to, in the text, you want it to show in a separate line. You can add that in between the text, and there'll be one line. Then text file means not a Word file, but the actual text.txt file. So you'll be creating that here. You'll be writing to that file from Python. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but you'll be writing to that text, and then you can use that in there. All right. So what does these mean? This means it's just going to print that special character. So if you remember, quotation is reserved in Python as a string. So every time the quotation starts, that means a string is starting. But if you want to print that inside of it, so let's say you want to put the bunch right here, you want to put this in quotation. You can't do that like this. That means the quotation starts here, ends here, and this one, for this one, it starts here, ends here. Bunch just feels left out. But if you want to print that as in quotation, what you need to do is you need to define, do escape character. That means this, I want this as a string. I don't want to use it in a programming. So if I run it now, bunch is in a quotation, and I have one single backslash here. But this is just to show you. This is not. You will be using the Python, but you will be working with. You will be using PyCharm today. But if you're working with you will be working with a partner. Then you can use your partners. You can tell them, oh, do this, do this, do this, and they can type the code for you. Only one person in the group has. Oh, emojis. So if in Python, you can print emojis, and the way you would print them is their codes. I have links on Canvas. You can do that, and you would need special characters for it. And I don't have those names or those numbers memorized. There are two ways of doing it. I'll show you both. So this would print in Python right here. I'm using the older version of Python 3.7, but you guys should have 3.9 or 3.10. You should see a emoji right there if you do this. At the end of the class will be recorded. Yes, I am recording the class, so I will post that up on Canvas. Yep. So there's one way like this, and the other way is I'm not able to see emoji because I'm using the older version, but you guys should be able to see the emoji printed here. So the other way you can do it is a number. It's a Unicode, and the Unicode is 00. Remember, I don't have that memorized. I don't expect you to memorize it. And if I run it now, I'll get 2 emojis. Well, you should get 2 emojis. But this is the way you do it. How you do it. On Canvas, I have links to those, and they actually show you all the numbers, all the names you can use if you're creating a game or text kind of thing, that kind of thing. You can use those. But I just wanted to show you that could be done here. Pair programming assignment. So this will be your pair programming assignment. You have to write this, and the challenge is, what did we use last code for? I have a question. This last code is to print emojis. This will print emojis. It's 2 ways of printing the same emoji. Yeah. This is Unicode. This is called a Unicode, and this is just the name of the emoji. Oh yeah. So what is the comment supposed to look like in the assignment? Once again, I'm getting a question on the chat. This is the name, partner's name, and CS 108. This is Tuesday, Thursday, assignment name, and 1 line explaining your code. At least 1 line, I should say that. You can have multiple lines. Right. So this should go in on top of all the assignments starting today. Right. You need to write this poem as it is, as this output, and you need to do this in 1 line of code. So using a print statement. Is everybody able to see my Microsoft Word? Oh, it's there now. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you need to write this, work with a partner, how to do this, and you have to write it in 1 line of code. So now I want everybody to take a picture of this. So I'm going to divide you into group. Then you won't be able to see this. So take a picture of the screen. This is how the output needs to be. So 10 more seconds, take a picture, then I'll divide you into group, and then you can work with the partner to come up with it. Yes, so if your computer doesn't support PyCharm, try a different computer, or for this class, we're sticking with PyCharm. These are online browsers you can use to run, but I would highly recommend you use PyCharm and get used to IDE. That's what you're going to be using in the industry. Not particularly PyCharm, but similar stuff. You won't be using online compilers. All right. Let's see. That's it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you how to turn it in. Here's my screen. All right, and this is, where did this go? Refresh. So this is your guys' class. And this is it right here. So I'm going to indent it. So this is in class assignment Thursday. I'll show you how to turn it in, and you're going to be turning in your program Haiku assignment the same way. So you go into assignment, let me do student view. So you do start assignment, and then you upload the file. You're going to be uploading .py file. So if you go in, let me show you how to. So let's say this is the file that you worked on. Everybody can see my PyCharm. Is there anybody who's not able to see my PyCharm? So the way you would find your file would be right click. I think we went over that last Tuesday, but right click on the file and go into open in and go into Explorer. This would give you that file in the Explorer and you would know where it is saved. All right, so it takes me here and I can actually see the file that is saved here. So the easiest way I can do it, I can copy the address right here, and I can just copy this address and go to where I need to turn it in right here, and go to file upload, go to browse, and I can just paste that address in. It'll take me directly to that file. I can just upload it from here. Looks like I lost some people. So let me actually share my screen without actually switching. Let's share the whole screen. All right, so refresh this. All right, so a couple of people have questions. Let me go through the process one more time. So this is the assignment you'll be turning in. So you get to this on Canvas. Everybody can see my Canvas, okay? Yes. All right. Start assignment, and then you'll be uploading the file here. But you need to go and find the file that you just worked on. That would be the .py file. So you need to do that in PyCharm. So this is the file you worked on, .py, test.py, or whatever the file you worked on. It'll be a different name. Right click on that file, go to Open in Explorer, and that would just take you to this right here. And this is the file you'll be turning in. In my case, this is the file I'll be turning in, but yours might be different name. Just copy the address. This is one of the easiest way I found. There are multiple different ways you can do this. So I'm going to copy the address, go back to Canvas, and click on Upload File, and go to Browse. And here I can just paste that address in, hit Enter, and it'll take me directly to that file. And now I can select this file and click Open. I'll upload it, and that's the file you'll be turning in for this assignment, and that's how you're going to be turning it in for your Haiku project. Yes, so it did say link before this class, but now it should say a file. But if you turn in a link and it takes me to that file, that is fine. I'll accept that, but you'll be, if you go there and refresh if you refresh your Canvas, and then it'll be there. Turn it in, we're good to go. Yeah, so one person in your group turns it in, you're good to go. Any questions, any concerns, how to turn it in? If you're still having trouble, I can show you after class. Yeah, see me after class if you're still having trouble. One thing I do want to make sure is you make sure whatever you turn in, you have your partner's name on there. If you don't have your partner's name, you're going to get a 02 and your partner is going to get 02. So make sure you have your partner's name on the file, just like that. So the Haiku assignment you're going to be writing, I got a message here. How do you suggest I do the Haiku assignment if I cannot access PyCharm? Is there a reason you cannot access PyCharm? And so yeah, to talk to me after class, I'll show you. But we can find something else for you to write your code in. There are multiple ways, but PyCharm should work for almost everybody. There are a couple of students who are running start, the PyCharm might not work because they don't have permissions, but other than that, it should be good. So expressions, and we can do is a pointer in memory, and you can store stuff in that pointer, and that points whatever name that you give, it'll be directly to that memory. So let's say you have x equals to 2. So now you have, this is the variable name, and this is the value of the variable. So now x is a reference pointer pointing to 2 in memory. So if I run it now, nothing's going to happen. It is just created that pointer in memory. So we can also do something like this. It might be confusing a little right now, but as you move along in the course, you'll see how it connects. So it's going to pointer pointing in memory, and that memory value is 2. So if I go 22,222, that like that, it just increases the memory to fit that value in there. Memory means RAM. It could be RAM. It could be storage space, depending on how you're writing your code. but in this case, this is just RAM. And now if I need to print that pointer, what I can do is name that pointer. Now we'll print that pointer. So in this case, let's keep it simple. I'm going to name that X. X equals to this value. I'm trying to print X value. I can just do print. You can have multiple variables. You can have X, Y, Z, anything you want. So you're going to have something like this. Now, if I print X, the same value. If I print Y, what would it print? 4, hopefully 4. And if I do something like this, so it's going to just add those values together and print the result. It's not going to print 2, 4 right next to each other. It's going to do the actual math. So if I do something like this, what is it going to do now? Yeah, error. Just like we did the first thing we did in the class, we did that without variables. Now we're doing it with variables. It's trying to concatenate. It's not able to because we don't have it. You can do multiple things with this. What would it print now? Yeah, so it's going to do the math first, and then it's going to print the actual result. So it's going to be 2x. What the compiler does is we have a value of x. What's the value of x? 2. Then we have y. What's y pointing to? Y is pointing to 4. Plug in 4 here. And then 10 is just 10, it's not a variable, so it's going to do the math and print it. So you can have, like I said, you can have multiple things, something like this, and you can name the variable whatever you want. There are naming conventions you guys need to follow. You cannot have a space in the name of the variable. You cannot have a space. What you can do is have underscore. So if you're trying to type in this is variable, you can do something like this. This is, yeah, we'll do that in a minute. Question is, you can assign equation to a variable. Yes, you can. I'll show you that in a minute. So now you have something like this. And if I run it, what would print right now? Because I haven't changed any print statement. Remember, all this is doing is setting pointers in memory. It's assigning values to variables. That's for the compiler to know what they are. We're not printing anything to the screen. We're only printing whatever's inside of the print statement. So run it, only get 16. All these get assigned, but we're not using it anymore. Yep. So we got this. Okay. One thing, beginners always make a mistake. They have a space in the name of the file. Don't put a space in the name of the file. You can put underscore, or the way I did it before. You can do it something like this, and the one thing you want to make sure in the naming convention is always start your variable with a lowercase letter, and to be consistent with, that's how everybody else does it too. So this is a something like this, and that goes to 10. Now in English, they're pretty much the same name, but I did it 2 different ways, so they do 2 different variables. I did capital letters to start a new word. So instead, in here, I didn't use capital letters, I used underscores. They all work. If you, in the coding, you're doing it this way, make sure all your variable names are this way. If you're doing it this way, make sure all of them are this way. Don't change it in the middle. That's just, the code is really hard to read. All right, and then you can do a variable called result. And what you can do is x plus y plus this is variable. And now the result is this, and then you can actually print the result, something like that. So now this would be an expression. You have an operator, and then you have operands that are doing something in that expression, and then we're storing the result inside the variable name. No questions? The class due. Yeah, the in-class assignment is due at 11:30. So you still have time to work on it. Yes, yeah, still have time to work on it. All right, so what would print right now if I run it? 16, so you have 2 plus 4 plus 10. And one thing you can do is, that's the last thing I want to show you, then you can do is the result is something like this. So now you have 2 just to sum everything up, what we've learned, this is one parameter, this is another one. Now, if I print it, this goes in as string, this everything is in quotation, and this goes in as an integer. And that's gonna put everything right next to each other. The result is whatever the result is. So if we did result, then put any other questions, any other concerns? So that is it for this class. We went 1 minute over. I'll see you guys next week. If you were not able to finish your in-class assignments, please stay. I'm still here.